It's the Queen City Music Podcast, the podcast devoted to the local music scene in Charlotte, North Carolina. Here's your host, Matthew Ablan.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Queen City Music Podcast. This month, I'm really excited to be speaking with jazz musician and educator Bill Hanna. Bill has been a staple on the Charlotte music scene for years, and you cannot talk about jazz in the Queen City without mentioning Bill's name. I first met Bill about 10 years ago when I invited him to come perform in an elementary school which I worked at. He was kind enough to come put together a group and not only entertain our students, but talk with them about jazz and music in general. So without wasting any time, let's get down to it. Hey, Bill, thank you for coming on the podcast. I appreciate you coming on.
All right, Matt, you're welcome.
I know we recorded it several weeks ago, and we had an issue with the sound, and you were kind enough to have me come back and interview you. So that means a lot.
All right, my pleasure.
So you're considered an elder statesman of the jazz scene here in Charlotte. How long have you been in the city?
Well, I came here in 1960. Let's see, I just got off the road with the Woody Herman band, and I was stayed with my folks in Wagram, North Carolina for a while until I could figure out what the world I wanted to do, and someone said that they're teaching, you should ought to get a job in the public school system in Charlotte, and teach junior high school, something like that. They understand there's some openings. I said, I do not have the patience, I don't believe, to teach junior high. But I came up and I interviewed with Oliver Cook, who was the head of the whole thing then. And he said, well, okay, you've got a degree at Indiana University. You play with Woody Herman and Stan Kenton and all that. We want you to teach, I said, well, we'll give it a shot. So they put me at Hawthorne Junior High School and teaching beginning band and orchestra, also teaching string. I didn't even know what the string on a violin were, but
they make you do everything.
Yeah, they gave me. I remember Eleanor Gwynn was her name. They put her with me. She was with the Charlotte Symphony and she was the violist. Okay. And any questions I had about strings, she could answer them for me. But anyway, I taught that first year just to get some money to kind of get me through the year. It wasn't much, but anyway, before I knew it, I was having fun doing that,
Right.
And they told me I didn't have a teacher's certificate. They said, so if you're going to teach anymore, you'll have to go get what the state says, what you need for your teacher's educational certificate.
Okay.
So I went to Winthrop that summer and made up what I needed, music for the elementary school child, a whole bunch of stuff that I really already knew, but
right.
They said, whole notes get 4 beats, and 3/4 time, and what all so on. And then the next thing I know, I'd taught 30 years.
Wow. It goes by fast.
Yeah, well, it wasn't all just junior high. I taught Independence High School when it opened in 1967. Mm-hmm. I taught it until 1990. Wow. So I had the band the first 3 years out there. I'm not a good marching band director. I do not do good halftime shows, and I don't really like marching and playing anyway.
Right.
But I did that. Then the orchestra job came open, and I asked my boss, Barbara Kajan. I said, "Let me have the orchestra. I know something about strings, and I know something about woodwinds, brass, and percussion." Okay, so I went out there in took the orchestra over in 1970.
Okay.
And taught it until 1990 when I retired, from the public school system.
All right.
So I'm old. I've been here a long time.
Yeah, but you may be retired from the school system, but not retired from music.
No, that's funny because I'm playing more now than I ever did before. I'm working four nights a week.
That gives me something to look forward to when I retire from the school system.
Uh-huh. Sure does.
Okay, so what's your musical background, Bill?
My mother started me on piano in the first grade, and I quit in the second grade. Mm-hmm. I was doing okay, but the boys in the neighborhood called me a sissy, and I couldn't stand it, So I had stopped playing the piano, and then in that was probably, the very beginning of the World War II.
Okay.
Anyway, and we had a soldier. Our church brought some soldiers over from a camp at Davidson, and they went to church, in the First Baptist Church in Mooresville, North Carolina, and the different folks would take these soldiers out to their house, feed them lunch or dinner, and then take them back to the camp. Well, we got a soldier that could play boogie woogie on the piano, and I heard that, and I lit up like a torch or something like that. I've got
like
to learn
Christmas tree.
I got to learn how to do that. And he showed me what he was doing, and I didn't do it automatically, of course, but it takes some time.
Yeah.
But I loved that. But I still didn't. I hadn't gone back to studying legit piano, classical. I just kept playing boogie woogie in the key of C for probably the next 20 years. Not really moving much further than that.
Right.
Never. And I started the trombone in the 6th grade. Now, all right. And actually, I should have been playing. If my band director in the 6th grade had known what a C melody sax was, I would probably be playing saxophone today. Maybe a woodwind, hopefully, clarinet, flute, sax, and all that. But
sure.
he thought my dad had a C melody sax that he played with my mom and her band when that's the way they met. Okay,
all right.
And mother had a band called the Gloom Chasers. My dad auditioned for her band on the C melody sax, which is a concert instrument. You play C on the sax, C on the piano, they're the same note, And he said, well, that's an alto sax. He gave me alto sax parts, and the notes didn't come out right. I go home to my dad. Dad, Mr. Warlick says the sax is broken. I need another horn. And Dad said, that's not right. He picked it up and played, Dinah, is anyone finer? It's fine. Nothing wrong with this horn. I said, well, Mr. Warlick says it will not play the notes it's supposed to. I'm figuring the way the chart says that it's not coming out right. So my uncle in Belmont, my mother's brother, Claude Wilson, loaned me a trombone, and that's why I'm playing trombone now. Okay, I started in the 6th grade on trombone, but again, I wasn't on. It wasn't like a house of fire, me
sure.
playing these instruments. I played them, I guess, somewhat well, but not anything to write home about. Okay,
right.
And it wasn't until when I graduated Mooresville High School in 1951. I was in the Mooresville High School band, just playing 2nd or 3rd trombone along the way there, not really doing much. I had the Baxter Potts had a stage band in Mooresville, North Carolina. A lot of us played in that boy, and tried to play some jazz charts, but nobody knew what to do. Nobody knew to give us any instruction on really how to improvise or really play these charts, So we just struggled there. But I went to Davidson College because it was only 7 miles from Mooresville. I didn't know what in the world I wanted to do. So I said, let me go to Davidson if I can get in, maybe I'll know something when I get out.
Sure.
So next thing I know, the Army got me. At the end of my junior year at Davidson, my grades weren't good enough at Davidson to keep me out of the Army. And I got sent to Fort Jackson in Columbia, South Carolina, and luckily, I got into the second 8 weeks of training in a band school, okay? I wanted to go to paratrooper school. My buddy said, Bill, that's crazy. You play a little trombone, go down there and talk to other folks in the band school. Maybe they like to, you get in that. The duty's pretty easy.
Right. So
I went, and, they let me in by the little hair, you chinny chin,
Just about me.
Yeah, and anyway, the epiphany was to come. Now, one night in the barracks, some of the fellows in there were playing jazz, all right?
Okay.
They had a piano in the barracks. Somebody put a set of drums in there. Somebody had a bass. A couple of them had some horns. And I'm sitting on my cot listening to that. I said, man, that sounds so good. I believe I can do that, Stupid me. I think I can do that. So I go over and ask the fellow, I said, can I play? He said, do you fake? I said, I am not a fake. He said, no, that's what I meant. I mean, do you improvise? Can you make it up? Yeah. I said, well, I don't know. Give me a shot. So when it was my turn to play, he said, come here, blow, play something. Well, I heard something in my head that I might want to play on the trombone, but I couldn't find it on the horn.
Right.
No, not then, not at all. I didn't know my instrument. Really. I barely knew it. I knew it was a trombone. That's about all it was,
Right.
So they kind of whisked me off the stage, and said, later, boy, if you're going to practice, if you're going to play this kind of music, you're going to have to practice, And I said, well, by golly, that's what I want to do. I'm going to learn how to do that. And the next thing I know, my orders came down to go to Germany, Frankfurt, Germany. I said, good Lord, my life is over. But it wasn't. It was just starting. I got into a 4th Infantry Division band in Frankfurt, Germany. A lot of the musicians in that band were playing jazz.
Right.
They were going downtown to Frankfurt, sitting in with the German musicians, talking jazz, eating it, sleeping it, dreaming it, buying records. All we had were records back then, not like they have now. All these books out by Jamie Abersaw,
Sure.
Music Minus One, all that stuff, and YouTube and all that.
Yeah.
You can find anything you want. But all we had were records. We had to go buy records and listen to what Frank Rossellino would do, or JJ, or Kay
figure it out.
And figure it out.
Drop
right.
it.
Try to figure out what the changes they were using and all that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was on fire, man, about learning to play jazz. And that was my idea. So I had a friend from Florida named Kelly Geiger. I'll never forget him told me, he said, if you don't go back to America when you get out of here, and you finish that 1 year at Davidson, if you don't go study music and become a musician, you'll be sorry the rest of your life. I remember him, So that's what I did. I came back, I finished Davidson, got a business degree from Davidson College, which does me absolutely no good. I can't even balance a daggone bank book, That's just not my forte, man, I went to I found Indiana University. That was the school that I was told it would be a real good school, So I go to Indiana. I got accepted up there and got into the master's program on the trombone. And it's funny because at Indiana University, the teachers were not jazz enthusiasts at all, but the students were. There were a lot of great students up there at that time. Dave Baker, for one, we were students together. And then actually jazz was kind of frowned upon at Indiana University. Right. But it was a good school, great school, but it just they didn't, I don't know, there was a shortage in their brain there what they were thinking about jazz, because it's such it's such a wonderful thing. It's an art form of America. We're the only ones that started jazz,
Sure.
And They frowned upon it, but I learned from people like Dave Baker, who later on became the director of their jazz program at IU. They now have a program at Indiana University.
Oh, yeah.
You can get a doctorate in jazz studies at IU, Indiana University.
They've had a fine music program, as far as I know, for quite a long time.
Oh, it's always been great, but now they've added jazz, and they finally, I hate to say it, but they saw the light.
Right.
Because jazz. Leonard Bernstein loved jazz. He put a record out. What is jazz? He's talking about it,
Mm-hmm.
And when he finished conducting the New York Philharmonic, he'd go down somewhere else, Slugs at the East Side, New York, and listen to Chick Corea play, for instance, or Wayne Shorter, or whatever, the Jazz Messengers.
Sure.
And it's a beautiful art form, and it should be listened to. And it is. That was one thing. When I came to Charlotte, that's what I wanted to do, was kind of push jazz around here and try to educate the folks, which I've been doing, but also teaching folk how to play their horn, just the basics of the instrument.
Sure.
You can't play jazz until you know how to play a horn.
You're
There's
right.
no way in the world. You got to know the instrument really well.
Yeah.
Picture something. You hear an idea in your head, and you got to be able to find it on your horn. That's heavy.
Yeah.
Really. So anyway, basically that's my background, I guess, in jazz and shot. No, I don't really, people think that all I taught in the public school system was jazz, and that's not right. I taught kids how to play their horns first,
Right.
How to sit, how to breathe, how to interpret, how to phrase, And I said, now, and we played music. We played marches. We played concert pieces. We played operatic pieces,
right,
so on and so forth. But then I had a jazz band that met on Monday night called the Monday Night Jazz Band, for which I got no pay, but I did it for 30 years.
Just for the fun.
I did it for the fun. And, all the money, when we go play in festivals and stuff like that, we footed the bill ourselves. Nobody gave us any money for gas, gave us any money for music. I had to buy all the music, And, but that band was a fine high school stage band, man,
Yeah.
A lot of the boys in that band are now playing in Charlotte, playing around, teaching, playing with other big bands,
Right. Well, speaking of that, the city of Charlotte, it's continued to grow over the last decade since I've been here. Mm-hmm. How has that affected the jazz scene that you've seen? How has it affected it?
Well, I think there's more jazz in Charlotte, really. Some lady was telling me last night, I play at the Cajun Queen.
Okay.
They have music there 7 nights a week.
What nights are you there?
I'm there Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay.
And they're early hours, 6:30 to 9:30 weeknights and 6 to 10 weekends, all right?
Yep.
But we play, we play everything from A to Z there, soup to nuts, you might say. We play some bebop, we play some Latin, play some ballads, play some funny tunes,
Right.
Sing when the Saints go marching in. We get the crowd involved with us. It is fun. But there's music. The lady said, I can't find jazz in town. I said, well, you just don't know where to look now. I mean, you've got No Da here in town,
right?
North Davidson. There's music up there. I know a place up there called the Evening Muse,
yes.
I think it's called.
Yes.
And the neighborhood theater. Mm-hmm. I heard Herbie Hancock there one night. Of course, he's not there every weekend, but they have big names come in there. We got the Music Factory out
right.
off Graham.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the Music Factory is called music. So there's some kind of music going on out there. Sometimes it's rock and roll, sometimes whatever. But I've got some of my students from from CPCC
right.
are playing out there, and I know what they're playing.
So you got some students playing down all over the place in Charlotte, downtown.
Yeah. Well, there's also Sullivan Steakhouse. There's music there, I think, on weekends,
Okay.
And there are bars all around, where they have a little band set off in the
sure.
corner. Smokey Joe's. Then it, doggone it, I can't think of the name of the place now. Where the Diamond Restaurant is. Remember that up in there? What's that called? Plaza Midwood. The Plaza Midwood
mm-hmm.
area. There's Snug Harbor, I think they call
Snug
it,
Harbor.
and Petra's.
Yep.
I know they have jazz there. Not all the time, but they do have it, And Thomas Street Tavern, they got some fine players playing there. You got to know where it is. Charlotte's a big city. Really.
Yeah,
I mean,
it is. It's spread out.
It is really spread out.
If you just go downtown, you'll think it's
mm-hmm.
a small town, but you start thinking about South Charlotte, East, West, North
right.
Charlotte. It takes 45 minutes to get down to South Charlotte. I mean,
I know. You got there are plenty of places for them to play. You just have to look for it.
Yeah. Now you've got a standing gig at Moorhead Tavern every Tuesday night.
Right. The Moorhead Tavern is 8 to 11, no cover charge.
Right.
They've got food, drink, all that stuff. And that took the place of the very famous Double Door. Remember that? Which
yes,
we played.
Absolutely.
It was there for
recently
43 years. Yeah, they just closed, and not only closed, they removed everything. There's nothing there anymore. No building, nothing's gone. Kind of sad, but Moorhead is. We're doing pretty good over there. Really, folks are starting to finally realize that we're not the Double Door anymore. And they know where we are at the Moorhead.
So what's the show like there on Tuesday nights for you?
Well, it's a jam session. I've been hosting a jam session in this town for 20 years, and we bring music. Well, we don't bring them; they come from everywhere. Musicians come to town. They know there's a jam session at Moorhead on Tuesday night, and they come out and sit in. Some nights, we've counted them. My wife and I, on our way home from there, we count how many musicians did we have tonight. No, most of the time we got about 20 players. 20 musicians, different piano players,
right,
bass players, drummers, horn players, sax, trumpet, trombone, guitar.
So does anybody ever get up there and they don't really play well?
Unfortunately. Yeah, we had to get the hook.
You're like, okay, we're going to stop right there.
Like the Gong Show. Take them off the stage, I guess, And some people insist. Wow. That's a little tough, but fortunately we haven't been, burnt too many times.
Right.
Really.
Well, it's good. I mean, it's. I've got to get down there. I keep saying I'm gonna, but usually you're playing on Tuesday night, and I got work the next morning. So being a teacher, it's kind of it's tough to get up in the morning. And
that's that's good. I taught 30 years in the public school system. I retired from there, boy, and now I'm teaching at CPCC, but my classes don't start till 2:30 in the afternoon. So if
it's a musician's life.
Yeah, if I want to sleep in the morning, I will, but. getting up at 5:45 every morning for 30 years, I can't, I won't sleep past, 7:30 or 8 anyway.
So that's a nice segue. So you're currently teaching at CPCC, or Central Piedmont Community College. Mm-hmm. What's the program like down there for you?
Well, it has been real good. I've been teaching 4 classes.
Okay.
I've been teaching jazz vocal, a jazz big band, which is, like a 15, 16-piece big band.
Yes.
It's like we have charts for them: 5 saxes, 4 trombone, 4 trumpet, 4 rhythm. And then I teach 2 classes of jazz improv. Okay. It's not beginning instrument. If you get in that class, you have to be able to play something. You play the instrument, trumpet, trumpet, whatever.
But is it necessarily is it jazz improvisation or just improvisation?
It's jazz improvisation. Well, yeah, hopefully they'll play it in a jazz fashion. I'll make it, the word jazz is really, if you look it up in the dictionary, it says to enliven, all right, jazz. But to me, it is improvisation. Right. And you can improvise. You can improvise on any tune that was ever written if it has chord changes.
Absolutely.
And if you know the chord change and you know how to move around on your instrument, you can improvise or play jazz, all right? I don't know what else to call it, but all I know is I like to improvise, I like the feeling of knowing that I'm playing my own melody and not someone else's, I like being in that little little bag that sets me apart from the rest of the world,
So you got 2 sets of the jazz improv class. Is it like Jazz Improv 1 and Jazz Improv 2?
Yeah, and it's supposed to be beginning jazz for Jazz Improv 1. And so, theoretically, Jazz Improv 2 is a continuation of Jazz Improv 1, My dog bothering you over there?
He's fine.
Oscar.
He just wants to climb. He wants to be a lap dog.
No. There we go. Come here, boy. The improv 1 is supposedly beginning improvisation. Right. A lot of people come in there have never tried to improvise before,
Okay.
But they can play their instrument, and some of them probably, you either sink or swim in there, and most of them swim, I might say. They're not making records at the end of a semester. My golly, you can't. It takes a long time to do this stuff. I don't want to make it sound like jazz can happen overnight, because it sure doesn't. No. I'm still learning, really.
I think music is just a lifelong pursuit anyway.
And it is a lifelong pursuit, and you never get to the point where you say, "Well, I know how to play blues at F."
Right.
I mean, well, maybe I can get through blues in F 1 or 2. Well, a lot now.
Right.
But I never know what that I'm going to play.
Right.
I mean, but that's the beautiful part about jazz is the challenge, and seeing that what I like, Matt, is like I practice a lot. I'm practicing more now than I ever did, but I can feel some nights, really, I actually feel that I am progressing, after having tried it for like 50 years. You'd think, and that's what bugs me about these little geniuses that come along. These that little fellow over there in, where was he from? Indonesia, Alexander. His last name is Alexander. Yeah, he's about 12 now.
And he's just wonderful.
And he's a living Mozart or Chopin or something like that,
I don't know. I'm one of those folks who just works really hard. And I'm fine with that. I mean, I think there's got to be, there's something to working at it and getting better and progressing and seeing that. And I've never had the pleasure of being a genius at a young age.
Probably won't ever get that.
I don't know what that's like.
Me neither. I just don't know what they're thinking in their little heads,
Yeah.
What in the world are they going to sound like when they get to be, old, like 20,
So you got the 2 improv classes, then you were doing the jazz band.
Yeah, and the jazz vocal class, which folks really enjoy. I play the piano for them, and we pick a tune that's basically from the jazz repertoire. Whatever, like the 30s, 40s, Duke Ellington, Hoagie Carmichael, George Gershwin, Cole Porter, things like that. And I teach them about the style of the piece, like, it's a 32-bar tune with a bridge, and, or it's a 12-bar tune or 16-bar tune. And what they do when they sing and let the band play a while, and then when they come back in and all that, we try to work on beginnings and endings, and teach them how to use a mic, handle the microphone and feel comfortable with it. We try a little bit of scat singing in there too, you know, and that's just nonsense syllables is what it is.
Sure.
And most of them really enjoy trying, I mean, I don't try to embarrass them because, I get embarrassed enough as it is myself, But I think in all the years I've taught down there, which is 28 years now, 30 years in the public school system, 28 years there now, I must be about 115 or something,
Well,
whatever.
I think you know a little something after all those years of teaching.
Yeah,
you got to know something.
I had one student that just refused to try to scat,
Really?
And I wasn't. I said, I'm not. You don't have to. It won't affect your grade if you don't want to.
Sure.
If you're nervous,
They just feel silly doing it?
It feels silly. Feel maybe embarrassed. But if you play music, Matt, you're going to be embarrassed. You got to know that it's too big. You're going to be embarrassed.
Yeah. At some point, you're going to get criticized. You got to have a thick skin playing music. You can't just be playing and not expect somebody to say something good, bad, or indifferent.
You want them to say something and they don't. You wonder what they're thinking. Oh, did he like that or not? Whatever.
There have been nights, and I'm sure you've had them, because I think every musician's had them. You go on, you play. There's 3 people in the bar, and nobody's really listening to you.
Oh, Lord,
you can't expect people to come up to you and think everything you do is beautiful.
Yeah, the Cajun Queen, is a restaurant. That's what they're there to come and eat, and talk. If they listen to us up in that little room, that's fine.
Right.
Last night up there, we started with the room was full. Normally on Wednesday night, it's kind of empty right at the beginning, but it was really full last night. But there were a lot of folks in there that knew me, had me in junior high and high school like 30 years ago, and they were listening. It was really nice to have that happen. But again, we play some nights to ourselves. Might as well, because no one's listening. Yeah. And you got to get used to that if you're playing, unless, of course, you're one of the big jazz artists, a real big name. I mean, Wynton Marsalis and Lincoln Center Orchestra, when they play, they're, it's like musicians come to the Blumenthal down here.
Sure.
And that's another thing. Jazz has come a long way.
Oh, absolutely.
It has come a darn long way, rather, from the brothels down in New Orleans up to playing in the Blumenthal or whatever. But sometimes it's so what's the word, staid, dignified or something. People come and listen to you where they have tuxedos on. They can't really, you might say, get down with the music, and whatever, like they could in a nightclub, a club scene where they might have a drink, whatever, and be able to just sit back and listen like that. I don't know. It's really nice to play, though, in a situation like that where they have to listen to you,
Sure.
I mean, I've played some stuff up here in Banner Elk, North Carolina, with my quintet a few years back. They had a group up there called Forum, made up of all retired people, Pepsi-Cola or Coca-Cola bottling presidents, generals. And they came in there and they filled the auditorium to hear us play.
It's wonderful.
And they were standing outside an hour before to get a ticket to come in. And I don't know if it was just us. So I think they probably do that for all the artists they have on that particular thing.
Yeah, but people are coming there to hear the music. They're not coming there to food and drink.
They came to hear us play. And that's fun, though. It really is. You feel like you're somebody.
There's a place I played recently. I'm in the same situation you are, playing around town, and you'll play, and you are essentially a lot of times background music. Occasionally, you have some people who's just specifically there to listen to you, and you get applause. We played at this wine room up in Mooresville called 202 North Main. Mm-hmm. Great place, and the people came. And they were there not specifically for us, but they were there for live music. Mm-hmm. And it's completely different when you have an audience that's there for the music and how much they get into it, as opposed to oh yeah, we're going to stick you in the corner over there, and while everybody's eating, if they if they like the music, that's great.
The band's just an afterthought.
Yeah.
I hate that word when they say live music. Well, as opposed to dead music or something. But whatever. Jazz has come a long way, I think, in Charlotte. I really do.
It has. I think it's the music scene here is growing, and it's going to bring musicians of all calibers and different styles here, and I think it would be really healthy for the scene here too. Now, let me ask you a question. You've been playing and teaching jazz for a long time. What advice do you have to younger students coming to you if they want to pursue a career as a jazz musician? What do you tell them?
Well, first of all, I think, and this I would apply to about most jazz players, because there are very few that really make it big where they can make a real good living playing jazz,
right.
Especially in Charlotte. Maybe in New York, I don't know, but I've heard musicians starve in New York also.
Sure. Oh, absolutely.
Now, my suggestion to anybody who wants to play jazz, go ahead and get a music ed degree so you can teach,
Okay.
And I mean, I hate to say that because you say if you can't play jazz, well, then maybe you could teach, but you might not be a good jazz teacher, or might not be a good teacher, but then again, you might be. At least you've got a job. And it's, and it doesn't pay much. Teachers, as don't get paid very well. I heard just today on Mike Collins' show on Charlotte Talks, on WFAE. Somebody called in. They were having a big strike up in West Virginia. The whole state, they were striking for better wages, and they found out that the average wage up there was like $45,000 a year. That is not very bad. That's not. It's not, exorbitant by any stretch of the match,
sure.
but for teachers, not bad, really. Right. And he said, especially in West Virginia, because it's a coal mining town, and the standard of living, I hate to say it, was a little lower than other places. But may I tell you what I made my first month teaching in the Charlotte Mecklenburg school system? In 1960 now, my first month after taxes for the full month was $262 a month.
God.
All right.
Wow.
And when I retired after 30 years, I was making $30,000 a year.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Now that was almost 30 years ago.
Sure.
And so I think teachers hopefully they're making better than that now because things do cost more. Really.
But I mean, they're still behind the national average, at least in North Carolina.
I just thank the lucky stars, man, that I had some music that I could play at night and make a little bit more money, And so added the two incomes together kind of helped out a little bit,
That's the nice thing about being a musician. I always think about it, and I had this discussion with a friend of mine, Kevin Brawley, who was on a podcast last month. And Kevin is also a music teacher, but he's also a performer around town as well. And the nice thing about being a musician, if you're a teacher or a music teacher during the day, that's your day gig.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because most of the times you don't have very many gigs during the day, or when I say gig, I mean performing gigs. There's not a lot during the day. Usually stuff is in the evening. And if you teach lessons, usually you're teaching kids and you're not starting till sometime after 3:00 anyway. So it's nice to have something during the day to take it to bring in the income.
That is right. I really think, I'm really grateful for whoever it was that made me come to Charlotte and audition and talked to Oliver Cook a long time ago, to teach in the school system, because I really enjoyed it. Again, you get paid otherwise. You don't get paid sometimes in dollar bills.
Sure.
But you get paid by the students you got and the respect you got, and the stuff when they come back to you and tell you, how much they enjoyed your class and how much they got out of it. And a lot of them that are now playing and doing the same thing,
right.
So there's gratification there, maybe not financially, but I don't know.
It's nice to be remembered.
It's nice to be remembered, and I'm very fortunate that I have the job that I have now at CP,
yep.
And still able to play at night, because well, I must have been born at a real early age, I guess, or something to that effect,
Hey, man, you're staying healthy.
I
mean, and you're out playing. I think the music keeps you young, and it keeps you going, too.
It does. It keeps you. I'm looking forward right now to going to the Queen to play tonight.
Right.
I'm looking forward to it. And when I get to the point where I don't look forward to it, I guess I'll quit.
Hey, man, look, there was one of my idols, Andre Segovia, guitar player. He was playing doing concerts, touring the world into his mid 80s. You had, I saw Les Paul a number of years ago before he passed away. I want to say he was in his almost 90. I saw him at the Iridium in New York. So, man, just keep playing. It keeps you young.
I know. What about old U.B. Blake? How old was he, the pianist? He was something 100 or so. Might still be alive. I don't know.
It keeps you going.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start to close it out a little bit, Bill. But so let's see. You're at the Cajun Queen. What evenings?
Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Okay, and you've got your standing gig at Moorhead Tavern every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday from 8 to 11. Yeah.
And if anybody's interested in studying some jazz, they can get in touch with you down at CPCC.
Right. Exactly.
Fantastic.
And if they want to ride my little airplane, I got an airplane too, man. I like flying.
What's the name?
Well, my plane is a Cessna 150.
Wow.
Just a little two-seater. Your deodorant better be working if you get in that plane with me.
You can do some flips.
No, it's not an acrobatic plane. No. We just fly straight and level.
Okay.
And I love it. Really do. I got my license in 87.
Right.
So, it's a beautiful thing flying.
So that's your hobby away from music?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I think, I think being a musician, you got to have something away from music.
Probably. Yeah. If you get inundated too much, which sometimes I get, I can get that way.
Well, it's some people, you probably know from teaching yourself. I love when people come to me and they say, "Oh, this is my relaxing. This gets me relaxed away from my job." And I think, man, that must be nice, because sometimes it drives me crazy playing music, whether it's learning something, performing something. It's always there.
It's a challenge
to
play music. No, really, there's no way to state it any other way. If you play, it's a challenge. Even the best players, I'm sure, have to work on some things.
Yes.
But it's fun. I told my students when I was teaching, if you're going to look at a clock, and say, "Oh, I'm going to practice a half hour," you watch that clock, that hand will never move, Yeah. But you have to look forward. When you get to the point where you can't wait to get to your instrument to practice, you're on your way.
You sit down, a few hours can go by, you turn around, it's, whoa, 3 hours went by, what happened?
Right. You learned something, I hope. Should have anyway. Whether I can retain it. It gets hard. I knew tunes long time ago that sometimes I can't remember how they go now, or what the chord change is or something like that. I had to call Doug Henry up last night. We were doing a tune. We had an old fellow used to come hear us at the Cajun Queen. He was there 7 nights a week, and he'd sit at the bar, and we played. We called it a Webb medley. His name was Ralph Webb, and he's living in Raleigh now. But anyway, we played these tunes for him, and we did tunes like Serenata, and Begin to Begin by Cole Porter, and Frenesy. Anyway, they're all Latin tunes. And that first thing was, and right now I can't think of the doggone name of it, but I called up old Doug Henry, and I sang it to him over the phone. I said, "What is that? What's that tune?" And he said, "I can't think of it. Save my neck." And later on, last night at the Cajun Queen, I was playing, the phone rang. It was Doug calling me. He said, "Hey, the name of that tune is," and right now I can't remember the name of it. So this will have to be another show.
You're gonna give him a call. What was that tune again?
Yeah.
Oh man.
I know the melody. Ba-do-be-do-be-doodle-doo-doo-dee. Ba-do-be-do-be-do-be-do-doo-dee. That's the tune. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, man, but I can't even imagine what your mind is like. How many tunes you have rolling around in there. I mean, there must be tons.
There's a lot. Bunches.
So we can forgive you if you forget the name of one.
Thank you.
There's probably a bunch that you do remember. There's probably more that you remember than
Yeah, that's true. That is true.
So, well, thank you, Mr. Hanna. Appreciate you coming on the podcast and redoing it for a second time for me.
All right.
And if you get the chance, go see Mr. Hanna play. Go see Bill. You'll enjoy it. And make sure you say hello.
Right,
And
yeah.
applaud for the live music.
Request something, too. We'll be happy to play it for you. Or we'll play another number that's got a lot of the same notes.
There we go. All right, thanks, Bill. Have a great day.
All right.
And that'll bring episode 7 of the Queen City Music Podcast to a close. If you would like to be a guest on the Queen City Music Podcast, drop me a line at qcmusicpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, take care.